president has banned TikTok from the United States.
How?
You are not allowed to have TikTok anymore.
How does that work? How
he
can he
banned the app?
How? Like what?
I don't know. He signed an executive order saying no more TikTok. You can't download it. It is not allowed in this country.
Why?
Don't know.
I haven't heard anything about
Apparently, the rumor is, and I don't know how true this is, that it's made by a Chinese company and they're using TikTok to steal data, which it could be true.
Yeah.
You know,
it's possible.
Remember that app that you could use to make yourself look old? Apparently, they were doing the same thing with that.
Yeah, I heard about that. It was a data breach issue.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Whatever. Welcome to While She's Napping. I am Adam.
I'm Cindy.
Hey, we have a new podcast set up so I can look at you when I talk.
Moving up.
Which is good. We'll post a picture of it on the page.
Yeah. We've been doing a lot of rearranging and updating to the house and the layout, and it's getting there.
Well, you're really happy we have new blinds.
Yeah. Well, they've been sitting in the boxes since like the fall. I bought them in October, November. I bought them
before that.
I don't know. But yeah, they've been sitting in the box for a long time.
I want to say you bought them for your birthday last year in May.
No.
Are you sure?
Mm-hmm. Because I bought them with my end of year award.
Oh, that's good.
Yep.
Okay. Well, yeah, we're getting a lot done, and all we need to do is add more soundboards, and we can be a little more professional about it. But this is like looking at you. It's like a Joe Rogan show.
Yeah.
Just sitting across from each other. It's good. Hey, so last week we had some really good feedback when it came to the Mask It or a Casket episode. Unfortunately, we did not have anybody tell us why they don't wear masks. They're keeping it quiet, apparently. So, what are you going to do?
Yeah, I feel like if there was a really strong feeling or a reason that we didn't cover in the episode, I feel like if it was me, I would want that to be known because we weren't talking about it at all or even considering it in the conversation. So I'm kind of leaning towards the conclusion that we kind of covered all the most, prevalent reasons or excuses. So yeah, maybe there's not much else to be said. I don't know.
Whatever. Well, hey, if you guys want to take a trip back into your Wayback Machines and dig into the archives and hear us talk about why you ought to wear your mask, check it out. It's there, and it was very well received, so we appreciate the feedback so much. So I'm looking right now, we got another 5-star review. We had a couple new people like us on Facebook, so just keeps going. The web keeps expanding every week that we have a show. That being said, if you stumbled upon this for the first time, we welcome you to the show. We hope you enjoy it. Today, we're going to talk about how the world of sports is handling this pandemic and how they're handling things when it comes to social justice reform. It's going to be kind of a loaded show. You, Cindy, anticipated a 2-parter.
Yeah, after I thought about it, it seemed like it made sense to just talk about all the ways that sports is handling returning to their seasons. And those two issues are the ones at the forefront. But now I'm not so sure we can cover it all in one episode.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll just see how it goes.
I know some people were anticipating the Mandela Effect episode that we teased at least last week. So maybe we'll split it half and half. We'll see how this works out. But anyways, like I said, if you're listening to this for the first time, we welcome you. If you stumbled upon this from any social media platform like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, shout out to Reddit. You guys are great. Welcome to the show. We hope you enjoy it. And if you like what you hear, give us a 5-star review. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, basically wherever you get your podcast fix from. We're also on the YouTube. Still no video of us on the YouTube. I'd like to change that, but given the fact that we're spending all this money on other stuff around the house, the video aspect kind of takes a back seat. But hey, welcome, especially if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts. If you could take the time and give us a 5-star review. It's really quick, does not involve any effort, and if you don't like what you hear, don't do anything. Just walk away. Walk away from us. That's just fine. I have no qualms about that. Yeah, so look, if I don't even know where I was going with that. Anyways,
you do the socials. If you do want to contact us, in a way other than a review on iTunes, we're on Facebook, facebook.com/while she's napping. We post all of our polls there on the weeks that we get some listener feedback prior to our episode. We also post them on Instagram at while she's napping, and on Twitter at she's napping pod. You can also email us while she's napping at gmail.com.
That's the transition I wanted. That was a terrible transition. I got all caught up because I'm reading something else. What I am reading is the statistics, the numbers when it comes to listenership across the globe or around the globe for you normal people that believe in a globed earth. Thank you to the United States, Canada, India, Nepal, United Kingdom, Brazil, and Spain, and specifically where we are at. Of course, shout out to Rhode Island, where we reside, Massachusetts, California, Florida, Virginia, New Hampshire, New York, Arizona, Connecticut, Texas, Washington. Whoa, Trump's listening. Alabama, Louisiana, and of course, the Ultimate Warriors family in parts unknown.
Is it Washington, D.C. or
Just
Washington State?
Oh, probably Washington State. Fuck me. Oh, shit.
It's okay. We're leaving that in.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't care. I'm shameless. I told you that. I make mistakes all the time. I am a mistake. Just a walking mistake. All right. So how do you want to do this episode?
On that note.
I know this is, I don't want to say my territory, but I do 2 other podcasts. I do one on the Toronto Raptors and I co-host one on the Toronto Blue Jays. So this has been something that's been in my wheelhouse for the past, 4 months, 5 months since the pandemic began. I don't know how you want to split this up. Do you want to do social justice on the second half of the show?
I think so.
And COVID to start?
Yeah.
How sports are handling it? Okay. So basically, let's hop into the Wayback Machine back to March. And let's talk about how this all started. Basically, as far as I remember and going through it in real time, the NBA was the first to take the ball with this before any other sport. I remember it was the Toronto Raptors versus the Utah Jazz. This is why it sticks out into my memory so much. And Rudy Gobert, unbeknownst to anybody else who plays for the Jazz, was positive for COVID. And he made a mockery out of it in a post-game show talking about he's not afraid of the virus, and he started touching every microphone that was on the podium in the post-game. Typically, there's a good 15 to 20 microphones, and he just kept touching everything because he wasn't scared. Turns out he was positive for COVID. And
he did that before or after he knew he was positive?
Before.
Okay.
He didn't know. He also subsequently, we think through contact tracing, it's a good chance that he did infect a teammate, Donovan Mitchell, who is really good. And there was a sort of a grudge about it because Gobert wasn't taking it seriously in the locker room at all. The aspect of social distancing wasn't even, on the radar. He thought, I don't want to say he thought it was a hoax, but he was definitely relaxed about the severity when it came, and, guilty as charged, a lot of people were.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of, the tune really changed quickly when this all started, around mid-March. I remember we were even on the fence about going to an event at daycare on the Friday. And then on Monday, all schools shut down.
Yeah. And
we went into total lockdown mode.
So the next day there was a game, or the day after there was a game, I'm not sure. And they had the test results and they immediately shut down the league. Everything was shut down. And the NBA was the first to take the ball with this and run. And as a result, really, the domino effect after that, everything, even outside of sports, started shutting down.
Right.
So you got to give the NBA credit for being super proactive, maybe not early enough, in
none
hindsight.
Of us were.
Right.
In the U.S.
You can't blame them for it because the narrative in the country is that it's a low risk low risk kind of thing. So even with that, the NBA was the first to respond. They shut everything down. And as a result, the MLB did the same. The NHL did the same. NFL wasn't active.
Right.
Soccer did the same. So everything shut down. Which is kind of remarkable because, look, I know now we have a lot more information about the virus and sports are starting to pick back up, but it took one infected player in the NBA for it to shut down. One.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know if that had to do with the unknowns. I remember people thought that if you just touched a surface without any sort of droplets or I don't know, the transmission rate was ridiculous and they didn't know how this was spreading so quickly.
Right.
So,
well, and basketball is a close contact sport. I mean,
yes.
It's not like baseball where they're indoors for basketball. So it makes a difference too.
Yeah. Well, so that's how it started. And the MLB was in the midst of spring training at the time. So, spring training is important, but they weren't really missing any sort of important
games that count.
Yeah, games that mattered. Yeah. And the narrative for baseball was, next week. Obviously that didn't happen. So that's how it started. How they anticipated bringing it back together and perhaps resuming their seasons, we should say, completely different philosophies. The NBA and the NHL are sort of benefited in terms of the size of their respective rosters on their teams, that they don't need a lot of people for a team at once. I think the NBA, the max is 15. And with coaching staff and medical staff and stuff, you're probably looking at max 25 people, max.
Right.
So you can bubble that off, and that's exactly what the NBA did. They are now on the ESPN Wide World of Sports campus on Disney in Florida, and they're doing rigorous testing. They're testing their players, I think, once a day. They're keeping in mind false positives, so you have to fail 3 tests in a row in order to... Sorry, you have to test negative after a positive 3 times in order to be brought back.
Right.
But once you test positive, false positive or not, you're isolated
until you get your 3 negatives.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you don't, it's 2 weeks, no questions asked.
Right.
You're allowed to leave the bubble, but if you do and you come back, same rules apply.
3 negative tests or
3 negative
quarantine.
tests. 3 negative tests. So, you can't leave for any leisurely reasons. If you do, your quarantine, period, end of story. But if you have a family emergency, you're allowed to leave, and when you come back, it's 3 negative tests in a row.
Right. How long is their testing turnaround?
I think a day or 2.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot more. That's a lot faster than it is.
When you make the big bucks.
I know.
Yeah. NHL is doing something similar. They have 2 bubbles, one in Edmonton, I want to say. Maybe it's Calgary. I'm not sure. Both in Canada, and the other one's in Toronto. I want to say it's in Edmonton. It's not in Vancouver. Anyways, they're isolating both of those respective conferences in those bubbles. And once the Stanley Cup tournament happens, I don't watch or follow hockey. Those 2 teams will meet probably in a neutral location or maybe one of the 2. I'm not sure. Baseball, however, is flying by the seats of their pants and traveling, flying. Players are going out and about.
With large rosters.
Yep. Very large roster. I think it's 28 per team, and that's just players.
Right.
They do have a taxi squad, a minor league camp that's not playing any games, but they're training and getting ready. They're in different locations. So for the Toronto Blue Jays, they finally have a home in Buffalo, and their taxi squad is in Rochester. Right. Which isn't far from Buffalo.
And that came from the fact that they can't travel over the border to Canada, right? Can't go back and forth.
You can't go back and forth.
The U.S. cases are so high.
Correct. Yeah. And the Red Sox, they play in Fenway. Their taxi squad is in Pawtucket here in Rhode Island. So,
yep.
They're flying everywhere. They've already had outbreaks. About 20% of the league is infected.
That's insane. And
Sorry,
they've been
not
playing
of the
for
league.
how long?
20% of teams are infected.
Oh, okay. So not 20% of the players. It's just 20%
no, 20% of the teams.
Yeah.
So I think there's 8 or 9 teams that are infected.
That's still crazy. They've only been playing for like a week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's nuts. I feel like that this is such a good representation of the different approaches that the different leagues are taking of kind of the main points that, or the main things that we need to focus on to control the pandemic in general,
Right.
like even outside of sports. We've been hearing over and over, contact tracing and testing. Those are the most important thing for being able to control the pandemic. And the fact that these other leagues like the NBA have and the NHL have the bubbles and smaller groups, smaller networks allows them to do that. But with baseball, it's become so clear so quickly
And
how that can get out of hand.
Contact sport.
It's not, exactly. And I said that when we were watching the game the other night. I was like, I understand that they're not wearing masks when they're out, playing in the outfield because they're outside and they're far away from each other and there's no contact and they're not within 6 feet for the most part. But when they all come to the mound to confer, none of the players had a mask to pull up over their face and they were all talking right next to each other. Mm-hmm. Even in the coaching, I think the staff had masks on, but all the players, and I found that very odd. I'm like, I know that they're outside, but when they come into contact with each other close enough to have a conversation on the mound, why aren't they wearing masks?
I don't know. It's optional. And a lot of the players that are wearing masks, they're pulling it under their nose.
Oh, yeah, I see them. They're like playing with it all the time. Just like, I mean, I feel like baseball players and coaches, they're always like fidgeting with something, whether it's sunflower seeds or, tobacco historically, stuff like that. The mask just seems like another one of those things.
Well, you have to understand that baseball players are creatures of habit, and most athletes are. They tried their best to implement a policy of no spitting, no high-fiving, no, touching each other in any way. No sunflower seeds. It's being ignored. Yeah. Blatantly being ignored. And it's not being enforced either. A lot of the umpires aren't wearing masks and they're standing right behind the catcher and they're interacting with the batter.
And yelling.
Droplets everywhere. It's just not, it's not conducive with what we have to do. And I understand. I've said this on the other podcast. I get that this is a business and the revenue that makes this possible for teams to thrive, specifically in baseball with no salary cap. Teams rely on this revenue, television revenue. This is multi-billion-dollar contracts with television stations to broadcast games, attendance from fans for when it comes to
that's not happening.
No.
But
ticket sales, concessions, everything goes right back into the team, and merchandise amount among the team. This is not being affected in any way, but merchandise sales are split evenly among the 30 teams.
Well, I think that probably is being affected because I feel like people are more likely to buying. Well, sometimes people buy merchandise at an event because they're like caught up in the hype or whatever. There's a win and they'll go pay $50 for a t-shirt.
It's definitely a decline in merchandise sales.
Yeah.
So I totally understand why this is a tough decision, and I'd be hard pressed to just shut my business down too, especially if I rely on these funds coming in, and that's, I don't know, I'm kind of sympathetic to it because I understand the knee-jerk reaction is, oh, these are billion-dollar owners and multi-million-dollar players, they can survive. I'm not at the point where I can try to determine a player or an owner's lifestyle and say, no, you can do it without that. I think that's kind of irresponsible. I understand it's a popular narrative, like when you make a shit ton of money, sure, you can go without it, but I don't know what kind of business model the MLB has, and I don't know how this is going to affect salaries and what have you moving forward. I have no idea.
Right. I mean, you would assume that there's a cushion, that one season isn't going to make or break. Right. But yeah, I get it too. I think the only issue that I see with that is the level of priority that it's given. Like, I mean, it's still people's livelihoods, especially the players who, they work hard to get where they are and this is their entire life. But I think as long as there's equal attention to all of the other people who are losing their livelihoods and struggling, like legitimately struggling and don't have a cushion, as long as that's also being addressed, I think it's valid. Yeah.
This is you're right when you sort of look at the two equations of I'll lump the NHL and the NBA together. Compared to the MLB, it's the NBA is completely doing it right. And the reason why I emphasized so much in the beginning about how they took the ball when it came to shutting it down, when it comes to ramping things back up, I'll admit I was very apprehensive at first. I didn't think they should do it. They drew up this model before Florida turned into a shit show.
Yeah.
And now that when it was, I was saying to myself, you can't have this. You can't have this bubble, even though it's a good idea in theory. It's not going to succeed because what about hotel staff that doesn't have to abide by these bubble rules, right? They're not staying at the hotel, those that work there. Security staff, medical staff, the independent of the NBA. Right. They have no obligation to stay, and they're interacting with all these people.
Public.
Exactly. Yeah. When you have, I think the highest it was 15,000 plus in Florida. It's very difficult to not bring it in, but to NBA's credit, they have, I think, one positive test, and they're determining whether or not it's a false positive, but that player right now is isolated. Right. Hopefully it doesn't spread, but a couple of days ago, it was 0.
Yeah.
Well,
I think one of the most important things is it sounds like they have a contingency plan for if this happens, then we take this action and we go in this direction. And then if that results in this, then we go this way. And it's kind of like they have their different scenarios sort of laid out as to how they're going to react to every possible situation, as much as you can in a situation that has so much uncertainty. But it feels like the MLB does not have that. It feels like you said, they're flying by the seat of their pants. They're like, oh shit, we've got all these cases. Yeah. What do we and they're still playing games. And was it the Marlins that really had the big outbreak?
The Marlins as of today, and again, we're recording this Saturday, August 1st. This will be in your feeds Monday morning. Marlins, as far as I know, had 19.
That's insane.
19 players on their roster. Remember, you
out of
could only have 26, 28. 19, right? So more than half. And it started, apparently, they went out and about in Atlanta. This didn't happen in Miami.
Right. And it was on the road. Chicken wings, right?
No,
was
that
something else?
That's NBA. I'll get to that in a second. But they were in Atlanta for, I think it was an exhibition preseason, quote unquote, game or series. They went out and about on the town. They came into Philadelphia to start the season, were infected. They knew 3 players were infected, and they still decided to play.
Yeah, that's just irresponsible.
Knowing there were 3, okay? And so what they did was they called the players meeting before the game and said, how do you want to handle this? It's like you're throwing away all the protocols that you have. It's, hey, we have all these robust protocols to deal with this virus, but hold on, hear me out.
Yeah.
Players meeting. What do you think
maybe
about
we don't
that?
have to do what we thought we would.
Players meeting. That should fix it.
Reevaluate.
And as a result, it spread like wildfire. So in Philadelphia, that was in their visitors' locker room, right? Philadelphia Phillies. The Blue Jays were supposed to go there.
Right.
They couldn't because as a result of that, 2 Philadelphia personnel got it, a coach and a medical staff member. And you have to imagine that medical staff member was dealing with a lot of the players before and after the game. So there's some contact there. I hope he was wearing a mask, or he or she was wearing a mask, because again, this is a medical professional. But as we discussed last week, the mask isn't 100% effective. There's a slim chance that it could have been passed on. We don't know. The Cardinals got infected. The Yankees had to move their schedule around. The Orioles had to move their schedule around. As I said, the Blue Jays had to move their schedule around. The Braves had to move their schedule around. Yeah. There's all these moving parts because of one team's irresponsibility and refusal to follow protocol, that this is what we're dealing with now. So the MLB is in very bad shape. I said it at the onset of the season, this will not finish. They will not make 60 games. It's impossible. And then postseason, it's impossible. It's not going to happen, despite their quote-unquote best efforts. And moreover, I know a lot of people love the NFL. If you're an NFL fan, this is bad news for you because they're still thinking about traveling. You can't bubble the NFL. We're talking team members in the 50s.
Right, way too many people.
You can't bubble the NFL, right? This is more of a contact sport than baseball. They still will be traveling. I don't know if they're going to allow their players to go out and about, but I don't trust that they won't ignore it. So those two respective sports, baseball and football, I just don't see it happening.
Yeah. So I'm curious to go back to when you said about the players meeting with the Marlins. Was it just Marlins players?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not like the MLB was like...
Well, there's some gray area in that. The speculation is that the commissioner knew. The head coach of the Marlins certainly did.
Right.
Yes.
I was just wondering if they're taking into account teams, players of other teams. Like you said,
Nope.
It's such a domino effect of all these other players being affected by this decision of this one team. And when they don't have a chance to say, no, I don't feel comfortable playing against a team where there's players who have tested positive or who haven't had their 3 negatives or whatever the case might be. And then those players are risking taking it home to their families because they're not in a bubble and they're not quarantining. And that's just really sad to me because they don't have a choice.
You rob them of the opportunity to choose. They rob the opposing team the opportunity to choose. And, David Price, pitcher for the Dodgers, opted out. And he said, I do not trust that Rob Manfred, who's the commissioner of the MLB, has the best interests of the players in mind. I don't trust that. Yeah. And here we go. We're seeing that in real time. We have 20% of the teams have been infected or impacted as a result. I should rewind. 20% of the teams haven't been infected. They've been impacted.
Okay.
By this.
Gotcha.
All right. So I should,
games moved around or canceled or whatever. Yeah.
And David Price came out and said, I told you why I didn't want to do it. We're seeing it.
Right.
And I don't feel comfortable. So that's just to give a broad general guideline as to the respective natures of these leagues. And this is why, in my opinion, the NBA is ever so increasingly becoming the cream of the crop when it comes to sports. The NBA is surpassing people's interest levels when it comes to the respective sports. I do think eventually they will surpass the NFL.
They got me. I prefer basketball over football and
it's
baseball
easier
now.
to watch because you can be a super casual fan and you can just pick up on the game. MLB, you have to be a fan of inaction in order to like it.
Yeah.
And football, if you don't like I don't want to say the violence, but if you don't like a lot of their practices that we're going to go into when it comes to social justice, they're easy to disregard. So the NBA, again, is proving that they are prudent when it comes to their planning. They're proving that they do have, at least they appear to have, the players' interests in heart. Maybe they don't, but they're just really good liars. And I got caught in the lie. But yeah, I got to give it to the NBA. And somewhat the NHL. I just don't have interest.
Yeah. Well, so the NBA is doing really well with the exception of, what's this chicken wing story?
Okay, so Lou Williams, former Toronto Raptor too. So he told his coach, Doc Rivers, he plays for the Clippers, that he had a family matter. And he did. I believe it was a funeral. This is legit.
Okay, yep.
And he went down to, I want to say Magic City, which is in Atlanta. So up, because he's in Florida. So he went up to Atlanta.
So another Atlanta outbreak.
Apparently, this strip club has amazing chicken wings. Like, this is known for, obviously, naked women, but at the same time, their chicken wings apparently are a thing.
Yep.
And I believe he has his own chicken wing named after him.
Okay.
There.
At that restaurant. Okay.
Lemon pepper, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure.
Okay.
So he went, and there were photos taken of him. The stripper that gave him a lap dance outed him and said, no, he was there. So as a result, he's suspended. He is not denying any of this.
Wait, did he test positive from this? Oh, okay. So it was just a break in the protocol of him going,
because you did something leisurely.
Right. No, gotcha. I thought that this chicken wing incident resulted in positive COVID test.
No, He got his wings in a lap dance, but he did have the funeral too. So if
Right.
it was just the funeral, so Zion had a family matter. We still don't know what it was. We imagine it was their funeral. He did his business with his
Right.
family, came back, and he has to go through 3 negative tests.
Right.
He does, as long as you have 3 negative tests, no need to quarantine. You're back. So he's coming back Tuesday.
Okay.
Lou Williams, although he's probably testing negative, I imagine, because the news would have broke already.
Right.
He's
still,
suspended
yeah.
because he
'Cause he
did
broke
something
protocol.
leisurely.
Yeah.
Had it had just been going to the funeral and dealing with his family matter, the NBA would absolutely be sympathetic.
So it's almost
to that.
like he took advantage of
He
having that
definitely
leeway.
took advantage of it.
Yeah.
And if it's selfish
that's
because his teammates, you bought into the bubble, bro. You had the opportunity to opt out.
Right. You all agreed to this.
Yes.
Yeah.
You knew that for the next possibly until late September, early October, depending on how far you get into the playoffs. This is
the way
your
it
life.
is. Yeah.
It's AAU camp. You're living
Yep.
in this dorm room with your
teammates.
colleagues,
Yep.
basically. And he thought he was above that and did whatever he wanted. And as a result, he's suspended.
Yeah.
He should be.
Yeah.
So that's but he's
the
owning
chicken
it.
wings.
He's saying, make the memes, do
Yeah.
whatever you got to do.
Well, the fact that it just happened to be a strip club that has good
Makes
wings.
it worse.
Right. I mean, it just makes it look so much worse. If he had literally gone to a wing joint and was just stopping to get food, it wouldn't be so bad.
Right.
It would be the same thing in reality, but it just makes it look so much worse that it was a strip
Bruno
club.
Caboclo, who's also a former Raptor, he plays for the Grizzlies right now. When the bubble first started, unbeknownst to him, he claims, no, this was made clear to you. He went out of the bubble to get food. And as a result, he had to quarantine and 3 negative tests and whatnot. But they're not being lenient when it comes to the protocols, but they are trying to make that environment, minus women, for the players. And I don't say that as if they're servants for the, but these are athletes, hence why Lou Williams went to a strip club.
Right.
They're trying to make it as accommodating as possible. Fuck, they built a barbershop on campus. They built it from the ground, built it. Because players love getting their haircuts. I get it. I'm not really, I'm bald, but if I had hair, I'd get it.
Well, that's kind of like a basic hygiene self-care thing.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
So that's the difference right
Yeah.
there. So I guess when it comes to COVID, you got to take your hat off to the NBA and I guess the NHL for how they're preparing these things, how they planned it out. And again, given the fact that these plans were made before Florida turned into a shit show, how it's still succeeding while Florida is a shit show speaks to the strength
of the
these
protocol and
protocols.
the
Yes.
structure that they
Yes.
put in place. Yeah.
So long as everybody's following the rules. So-
Well, I'm looking forward to basketball coming back tonight.
Yes, right.
Yep.
By the time you guys listen to this, you'll know who won, Raptors, Lakers.
And for the record, when it comes to chicken wings, flats are the best.
You have to be a fucking psychopath to like flats. Why do you?
Because you can break them if you know how to eat them the right way.
I shouldn't have to break my food. I just want to pick it up and
so you
eat
never
it.
you never cut a piece of steak or
No. Okay.
break up your food in any way.
When you have a steak, that's the only option is to cut it up or eat it with your hand, really. But I'm not a fucking savage. When you have a chicken wing, you have an option. Pick up and eat or work.
It's not that much work if you know how to
you
do it
have
the right
to,
way.
Tongue
No, you don't.
the
That's what
middle
I'm
of
saying.
it to
No,
get,
you take it, you
push
hold
the meat out.
No, you hold each end and you twist in opposite directions,
No,
and then you
I don't
eat
wanna
the
think
meat off
about
of
it.
one bone
Nope.
and then the other. It's so easy, and you get way more.
I don't want to think about it. I just want to pick it up. See, this
Well, I
is
took
why.
offense to-
This is why we work so well, because when we go to a restaurant, you could have
Eat the
all
flats,
the fucking flats,
and you
I
get the
can have
drums. Perfect.
Good to go. All right, let's break here. When we come back, we'll touch on the social aspect of this. Hang tight.
right. So that was a good overview of what's going on in terms of returning to sports in the time of COVID. But there's another conversation that's, at the forefront, I think even more than it has been in past years because of all of the focus that's been given to social justice and Black Lives Matter and all of that throughout the last few months throughout 2020. And I think, I thought before about one of my ideas for one of our episodes. At some point, I kind of wanted to cover, the whole Kaepernick protests, but that was several years ago at this point.
It's still a thing.
Exactly. So I'm saying the way that some of the teams have approached returning to this season, connects back to some of what started at, 2017?
Thereabouts.
Yeah.
Sure.
With Kaepernick's protests. So I've been seeing a few things online and a few reactions to some of the ways that some teams have been addressing these issues and the different stances and approaches that they've taken. So I thought we could just kind of like break down what it's looking like between leagues or between teams, how it connects back to the original message from Kaepernick, and I want to touch on some of the reactions that I've seen as well and get your thoughts on those.
All right, so Colin Kaepernick, it's important to note that when this first started, the very first time he sat during the national anthem.
Apparently he was sitting for a little while before people started to notice.
Okay, fine. So he was sitting. A member of the military, the U.S. military, I don't remember if this man was active or not.
But it was a friend of his, of Kaepernick's.
I don't know if it was a friend.
Or acquaintance.
Or just someone that saw it. I'm not sure. I'm vague on the details when it comes to the relation between him and Kaepernick, whether there was or not. But his immediate reaction was being pissed off. I fought for this country and you're not going to stand for the anthem. The narrative that is very familiar with why people are pissed off about this.
Right.
So I guess as a result, they had a conversation and Kaepernick talked to him and said, this is why I'm doing it. It's not to disrespect you. In fact, he thanked him when he first saw him. It's not to disrespect you. It's just to make, grow this awareness towards social injustice, specifically for Black people and people of color.
Police brutality specifically.
Yes, yeah. And the Marine suggested to him, I believe it was a Marine, suggested to him, well, why don't you kneel? Right. I find that to be way less disrespectful. And Kaepernick said, absolutely, done deal. I understand why you would think sitting is disrespectful. I'll take a knee. Right. Because apparently this military member said, this is what we do when someone has fallen.
You see that in sports too.
Yes.
Yeah, when there's an injury, the whole team takes a knee and waits to see if they're all right.
Right, and this is the disconnect when this is where I go to, I don't have the authority to really talk about this, but I guess as an American, I kind of do. If a Marine says it's okay, that should be the end of it.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with that. You can't you can't assume that one person represents their entire.
Okay. I'm saying
that's like saying if one Black person says it, then it's okay.
No. But if you can't say this is disrespectful to the military when a member of the military suggested this.
Yeah, but not everybody's going to interpret it the same way. I know what you're saying, and I think that it's good that he had a conversation with someone who represents, in general, the type of person or the community that might be offended or most offended by this. But I would just be careful with generalizing too much because everybody has their own, interpretation.
But here's the thing, and this is my default. And when I have these conversations with people about, the national anthem and stuff during sports, first of all, why the fuck do we even have it? I understand the reason why it started was because of World War II. And during a baseball game, they played it. It was to represent American pride during the time of war. We are beyond that. We are outside of that scope. And anytime I ask this question to someone that's very pro-national anthem before a sports game, is like, oh, it's a large gathering. Okay. We don't do it before concerts. We don't do it before conferences for work. We don't do it before, debate club. What are we doing? No other aspect in our lives do we play or sing the national anthem before a large gathering.
Yeah.
Why sports?
And it's not just the national anthem. There's a whole military presence of, the planes flying overhead and the whole, there's a whole thing.
But
Before
why sports? What makes sports qualified for this?
I don't have the answer for that, but I think that's an important thing that I've always thought of too, is why when sometimes I hear the reaction of keep politics out of sports, just play your game. I just want to be entertained. This is my escape. Keep politics out of it. I'm like, then not to say that necessarily honoring the military in and of itself or being patriotic is political necessarily.
I was gonna say that. The national anthem isn't political.
Right. But I guess it's just, why is there this overlap in some aspects? But then when it comes to someone drawing attention to a national issue or something that affects us as a country or makes them feel like their country is not withholding its values, now it's a problem and it needs to stay out of sports.
Because these issues, although social at their core, have somehow become politicized.
Yes, that's why I was struggling just now to describe that.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
And when you look at things like Black Lives Matter, even though now it does have some sort of political reinforcement or resistance, depending on what side you're on, at its core, it's a social issue. It's a social movement. It's not there is, a little bit of politicalness to it, especially when it comes to the current administration and that administration's resistance to it. But at its core, it's saying, hey, Black Lives Matter. That has nothing to do with, hey, are you a Republican or are you a Democrat? It's become that way. Yeah. But in its infancy, that's not what it was about, I think. I don't want to speak for the movement, but to me, when I look at these, injustices towards people of color or Black people, it's a social thing.
Right.
The political policies behind it obviously have an effect on these type of individuals that have been marginalized. But at its core, we're talking about social issues and how we as people can make things better or worse.
Right. I think the political side is crucial to making any systemic
there is
change.
Influence, I should say.
Right. But I think the thing that bothers me is the knee-jerk reaction of when someone says Black Lives Matter or one of the teams puts Black Lives Matter, like the Raptors did on their bus, or like the Red Sox did right outside of Fenway. They had this huge banner of Black Lives Matter. And the reaction is, oh, why do they have to be political? Why do they have to bring politics into my sports? It's like, why is that the automatic leap?
Well, hold on. So I want to get to that, but I just want to finish up with the national anthem.
Sure.
It's not like we go to Cirque du Soleil and we have to stand up and do the national anthem. And moreover, the last point I want to make about this, a lot of people that bitch about the players kneeling or, doing some sort of protest during the national anthem. I know some players in this, the infancy of this would raise their fists instead of kneeling. Some still do. Some do both. My reaction is this. More often than not, when you put on the game, you're sitting during that.
Yeah.
When you're at home, you're fucking stuffing your face with drumsticks, not flats, and nachos. You're just watching the performance. You're not standing. I'm sure there are some people that do, but very few and far between.
Well, when you attend the game, and you're
when you
person.
attend the game. So, but at that point, what difference does it make?
I know.
You're listening to the national anthem. If it's that important to you,
or you're
stand the
watching
fuck up when you're home.
Yeah.
If you're not standing up when you're home, you're a fucking hypocrite.
Yeah.
Period. End of story. And the vast majority of people, when they watch it at home, are sitting on their fat ass, stuffing their face with Tostitos. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I know. You're just so blunt.
But it's true. Like,
I know.
So that's you can have this stance when it comes to the national anthem. And to me, it's the pushback is, oh, these soldiers fought and died. How dare you kneel? No, motherfucker. They fought and died for the right to do this, for the freedom of speech to do this. If we didn't have that freedom, we'd be in this, I don't know, monarchy, this sense of, I don't know, dictatorship, this fascist government that people are worried that this is turning into. I'm not necessarily there yet, but that is what they fought and died for these freedoms to do this without being persecuted by their government.
Right.
Now, they're being verbally persecuted, but they're not being tossed in jail.
Right.
Thank God.
I mean, peacefully protesting is patriotic.
Yes.
So for people to call them unpatriotic for peacefully protesting by taking a knee because they feel like their country is better than this and we stand for more than this and it's not acceptable. And they're trying to use their platform to get that message out and raise awareness. And I think, so one of the things I wanted to mention, the only thing that drives me nuts is the religious connection when it comes to people kneeling during the national anthem and that catchphrase of I stand for the flag, I kneel at the cross. I went back and I was listening to an awesome podcast. If you don't listen to it, it's great. It's I'm late to the party. It's been around for a while. It's our national conversations about race. It's kind of a mouthful, but it's a great podcast. And I listened to an episode from when this Kaepernick stuff was fresh and had just started, and they pointed out that what isn't the first time an athlete has tried to use their platform for social change or to
in the Olympics, a black man won the gold and put his he put his fist in the air during the national anthem. It was a huge thing.
Yeah. They didn't talk about that. I don't remember that. But are you familiar with the NBA player it was in the mid 90s. He played for, I think, the Nuggets. His name was Mahmoud Abdul Rauf.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they played a clip of him talking about this, and it just like totally resonated. It made me think of this whole I stand for the flag, I kneel at the cross. And he said, it is also a symbol of oppression, about the flag, of tyranny. It depends how you look at it. You can't stand for God and be for oppression.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is exactly that there's so much hypocrisy in that sentiment of I stand for the flag, I kneel at the cross. If you're going to lean on your religion and being a good Christian specifically, because I feel like that's mostly what people are talking about. Obviously, they're saying the cross. Then you should be standing up for social justice and equality and people being treated with dignity and respect and not being discriminated against.
Yeah, I don't know how those two things merge. Like intellectually, how you merge your religious beliefs with your patriotism. Why are they?
Yeah.
I understand why you would have them in the same regard, but why are they meshed together?
I don't know. That people just started using that term of saying, I stand for the flag, I kneel at the cross, meaning I don't kneel for anything other than God.
I understand.
But to me, it's just so contradictory to the whole, if you are a devout Christian and you believe in those values, how are you not upset over the things that these people are experiencing, the people who are protesting? Isn't that important enough? Even if you disagree with using the national anthem as a platform for it or whatever, if you disagree with the timing or the approach, I just don't understand how it has to be all encompassing of one or the other. Like, then take it up in a different way or express that. I mean, that has always rubbed me the wrong way.
Why are these two worlds merging? I don't understand it either. And I don't know. I do think that when it comes to how these leagues are handling it, the NFL, to their credit now, it took them too long, but to their credit now, they're handling it properly. They're allowing players to vocalize, without obscenities and whatnot, but they're allowing players to
peacefully protest.
Yes, now they are. Whether or not you would agree with this or not, I kind of agree with this move. They stopped broadcasting the national anthems. And I think that's a double-edged sword. First of all, it's out of sight, out of mind, right? If you don't see the players kneel, you can't be outraged by them kneeling. However, you don't see the players kneeling. You don't.
So that
the
defeats
message
the purpose
isn't being sent.
of the.
I don't know if they're planning on revisiting that this season.
So it's saying you can protest, but we're going to take away your platform.
Yeah, basically.
So you're trying to raise awareness and use your platform to send a message, but no one's going to receive that message because we're gonna not broadcast it.
Right.
That's shitty.
I don't know if they're revisiting that though.
Yeah. Does Kaepernick have a job yet?
No. Well, not in the NFL.
Yeah.
I think he has a lifetime contract with Nike, or a very lucrative one with Nike.
Well, so that I have issue with too. Of like, I know I was just saying, if you disagree with the approach or the fact that they're using the anthem, but even that I feel like is problematic because then you're dictating how and when someone can exercise their right to protest.
No, because they're not saying you can't. They're not saying you can't kneel.
I know. I'm saying that's a fine line. No, but I'm saying not the NFL making that decision. I'm saying other people who respond to this and say, well, they can't. They don't have control. But I'm saying in their mind, they're saying you shouldn't do this in this way. You shouldn't use our national anthem for your platform. And it's not right to say how someone uses their rights. They can do it however they want. That's not your place to judge.
Unless you're not harming anyone.
Of course. I'm saying this is all around the context of peaceful protests such as kneeling during the national anthem. My other issue with that, though, is you just said it, that they're not going to broadcast it so that there's not this visceral reaction of people being outraged about it. I'm not saying I
agree with that.
I know.
I'm saying this is what the NFL...
Yes,
this is their motive.
I get it. They're trying to balance it out.
Yes.
They're trying to not discourage their players from doing this, but they're trying to keep their fan base happy, or
at least a portion of the fan base.
Yeah, and that to me, the fact that they are trying to cater to the people who are uncomfortable or outraged because of this is the heart of the issue. We need to be uncomfortable. People need to be outraged. People need to have their attention drawn to it, because I bet throughout this whole conversation, we're talking about Kaepernick and when he knelt during the national anthem, and that gained so much attention. People are still talking about it years later, but now the leagues are starting to approach it in different ways. Teams are doing different things, linking arms or hand on a shoulder.
George Floyd had a huge influence on this.
Absolutely, yes, in reigniting the conversation. But my point is, if we do it in any other way, like them being allowed to kneel, but it won't be broadcast, or them doing it, before the anthem, which I think there's a couple of MLB teams. They had I think it was the Yankees. They had a black piece of fabric down the first and third base lines, and they did a whole pre-game or something, moment of silence and speaking to the same message, but it was separated from the national anthem.
Mm-hmm.
People aren't talking about that.
Yes, they are.
But not as much as Kaepernick.
Of course not.
That's what I'm saying.
Because Kaepernick was the first.
He wasn't the first, but it was...
He's the most well-known.
Yes, and I think the reason he's the most well-known is because what he did was controversial and people were outraged and upset by it. And I'm not necessarily saying that that's always the way you have to do things to make progress, but I think if you're not doing something that grabs people's attention and makes people a little bit uncomfortable, it doesn't have as much of a chance to be effective.
I understand. And, again, to the NBA's credit, they had a policy. As far as I know, it has not been updated. They've had a long-standing policy of, even before Kaepernick, you must stand during the national anthem. It might have been as a result of that player that you mentioned that played for the Nuggets in the 90s. Mm-hmm. I'm not positive. I should do that research. But their policy is you must stand.
Yeah.
Don't know if they've changed that, but so far, last 2 nights ago, Clippers, Lakers, everyone knelt.
Wow.
And LeBron had his fist in the air. There was a Magic game. I want to say it was Magic Nets. I'm not sure. One player didn't kneel, and it was a black man, Jonathan Isaac. His response and his reasoning is, I just think we should, it was very religious in context. He was saying, I think Jesus is the answer to this. I don't think this is, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but it was a very religious reasoning, right or wrong. And there was a conversation that he had with his coach and his teammates, and they were all fine with it. Mm-hmm. Players are wearing Black Lives Matter on the back of their jerseys, or other messages in support of social reform. So the NBA, again, is being very progressive and allowing their players, because it is a very players-driven league, to vocalize what they want to, as long as it's not obscene or harmful.
But it's not obscene.
No. I'm saying there was a player that wanted "fuck the police."
Okay,
on the back of his jersey.
Got it. Yes.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, I guess I just get very aggravated and frustrated.
Fuck cops. Yeah, that's what he wanted.
Yeah, I get that. I'm saying I get very frustrated when I feel like there's this like we need to cater to the uncomfortable white people who don't want their sports disrupted.
I get it.
Like that just is to me like I'm sorry, like fuck that. No,
well,
like you should be uncomfortable. This whole thing should make you uncomfortable.
This is why the NFL reaches or angers more people than the NBA, because not to draw racial divides here. That's not, I'm saying basketball's demographic is predominantly black or people of color. Right. Predominantly. I'm not saying, obviously, I'm white. I love the NBA. There are obviously white people that love the NBA. Football is predominantly, although predominantly played by black people, I feel like it's predominantly viewed by white people.
Yep.
Or maybe it's an equal sort of viewership. I'm not sure, but it's not a predominantly black viewed sport. It's kind of like NASCAR. NASCAR is by far a predominantly white person.
Well, and I feel like
sport.
Maybe that dynamic is part of what contributes to this idea that I have in my head that it comes off. And I'm not saying everybody who's ever been upset by the national anthem kneeling thing is like this. I am not saying that. But I feel like it can read like there's this whole like the fan base that's mostly white fans saying, shut up, boy, do your job and just play the game and entertain me.
So when LeBron spoke out on these social issues, a Fox News host,
I remember this,
Lauren something, maybe I forget, said shut up and dribble. Yeah. That's where the whole phrase shut up and dribble came out. Recently, Drew Brees, who's walked it back recently, stated, I think it was in June, stated, I don't want any of my teammates or I don't want anyone kneeling for the national anthem. If the national anthem is playing, you stand for that, for the soldiers, the stereotypical,
the patriotic, support our troops thing. Yeah.
His teammate, Michael Thomas, who is considered one of the best, if not the best wide receivers in the league, said he still doesn't get it. And there was a lot of pushback towards Drew Brees throughout the league, again, from predominantly from black players, I should say. Push back, and that same Fox News host he's allowed to vocalize his opinion. He should be able to do it.
Yeah.
But wait a minute. You told LeBron to shut up and dribble when it comes to politics you disagree with, or a social issue, not even a political one, a social issue that you disagree with, which kind of makes you racist. But when Drew Brees meshes politics in his sport, he's allowed to vocalize that opinion. Can't be both ways.
Yep.
And since then, Drew Brees, in fact, today said, I didn't realize the amount of pain I was inflicting on people of color, not just in the league, but in the fan base or just in the community in general. And remember, he plays for New Orleans, which is a predominantly black city.
Right.
So Louisiana, we're talking about that. He's come out, and it could be lip service. Maybe it is. I'd like to think Drew Brees is a stand-up guy, and his teammates sort of educated him when it came to this, and he came out and said, no, I understand. It's not about the flag.
Yeah, it's
not about the flag.
Well, that's good that if someone finally got through to him, because he's been doubling down on his original message for a long time.
My rule of thumb is, are you saying out loud Black Lives Matter?
Yes.
You are? Okay, then not that you get it, but that you aren't afraid of the pushback from people that are pro-America and patriotic.
All lives matter.
Yeah. So, so the NFL, that's yet to be seen. The MLB, like as you mentioned, they're allowing players to kneel. Anthony Alford, so the Toronto Blue Jays, Anthony Alford is an up-and-coming, well, he might not be anymore, not because of anything political, but he's just not that good. He is a black player for the Blue Jays, outstanding athlete, just not a great baseball player. He wanted to kneel, but because he isn't established in the system, he was worried about his job. And he was saying, I don't know if I can do this while still, having a job, an occupation here. What if I get run out of the league? What if people won't touch me? Kevin Biggio, my favorite Blue Jay, white guy, said this.
Plan on it, really. So, Alfred's locker is next to mine here, and I know he really wanted to do it, but he was kind of hesitant to do so just because of, the situation that he's in on the field. He's kind of an up and down guy and not a starter. And, I told him, I was like, hey man, like if I did it, would you feel more comfortable doing it? And he said, yeah. So that was kind of my thought process going through with it. I just want to show support to not only a teammate, but someone I consider a brother. So that was my thought process behind it.
Love him.
That's an ally.
Love it.
Mm-hmm.
And this makes him my favorite player even more because Biggio is untouchable.
Yeah.
He's still young. He's still considered not a prospect, but he's a year into his tenure as a Blue Jay. He's phenomenal. They're not going to get rid of him. They're not going to trade him as a result. It would objectively make them worse. Whereas if they got rid of Alfred, it wouldn't matter.
Right.
Biggio said, if I do it, will you? And I posted the picture on the Facebook and the Instagram of him and another rookie, Santiago Espinal, the three of them kneeling.
Yeah.
And that takes balls, and you're right. It's an ally to say,
to use if you do have some privilege. So in this case, he's the white person, so he's got that.
No.
No, but I'm saying, and he has security. He feels secure. So I'm saying it's a couple privileges all kind of rolled together. But
mostly the job security.
Sure,
and
yes.
it's the added benefit of being a white person.
I'm making the parallel to anyone in everyday life. If you have privilege in any sense, if you have a platform, you have job security, you have financial security, or you happen to be white, you've got privilege, and that's an example of using it.
Yeah. So the MLB is, I guess allowing is the word. I don't know what their policy is when it comes to kneeling. I know a member of the Oakland A's was the first since Kaepernick that knelt, and a lot of people were supporting that at the time. There was pushback, but I think a lot of members of his team supported that. Tampa Bay Rays opening day. They said, today is opening day, which means it's a great day to arrest the people that murdered Breonna Taylor.
Yep, I saw that tweet. That was great. Yep.
And so that is the differences. The NHL, again, I don't watch it. I don't know. I rely on people that do watch it a lot to tell me about it. All I know is that they interlocked arms with each other. And it wasn't team on one side and another team on the other. Different members were linking arms together. So it was one team, another team, another.
So they alternated.
Yes, they alternated, and I guess that's a show of support of we're all united in this. And a friend of ours left a comment on our Facebook page. Don't want to name his name. Not that his answer is distasteful or anything. It's just out of respect for his privacy. I don't like putting names out. But he said, putting my obvious bias towards the NFL aside, I love the way they handled it. The way I see it, the issue people have with this whole thing is, quote, how dare you kneel and disrespect the flag, the country, the anthem, etc., which is true. We covered. That is the issue people have.
Right.
By remaining standing, interlocking arms between rivals that literally beat the shit out of each other, which is true. You now address that issue head on without being quote unquote disrespectful. The players made it 100% about the racial injustices. Personally, I'd be curious to hear what the naysayers bring against the NHL's type of demonstration. I do, however, fear that the ignorant, quote, that's because that's a white man's game statement will be brought up. If so, wouldn't you be able to counter-argue that by using that in their favor? Naturally, a predominantly black sport would stand with the black community, NBA, NFL. Wouldn't the fact that a predominantly white sport standing with the black community speak even louder? On top of the fact that they did so in such a way to not upset the, quote, how dare you kneel community. So basically what he's saying is they didn't bring out, or they didn't cause outrage towards the people that do not like the fact that people kneel during the anthem. And they also raised awareness to social injustice. That's the way this individual sees it.
Did they raise awareness for social justice?
I don't know.
I mean, how much awareness?
To me, Interlocking Arms is a show of unity.
I'm not saying it's not,
I just don't know
symbolically
how
appropriate.
That,
and
I don't
get
know
the
how
whole,
that directly deals with social injustice.
Well, I mean, most of this is, any of these demonstrations is more so just about keeping it relevant, keeping the conversation at the forefront, and just, making a statement. But I think that was one of the criticisms I have heard of how Kaepernick approached it, not about kneeling during the anthem, but that when he was asked how long he was going to do that for, his response was, until I see change, until I see significant reform. And there wasn't necessarily a definitive endpoint or a certain thing that he was trying to get to. So it seemed kind of like obscure that it was just a general raise awareness. It didn't necessarily have a direction. But I think that he's not a social activist. None of these players are. So we're not expecting them to be the next MLK. Like they're using their platform to try to make a statement, even if there's no definitive objective. So I'm not necessarily saying that. I think it would have been beneficial, and I think it's always beneficial when there's something like that defined that you can work towards. But so I'm not saying that the NHL players need to have that in order to make what they're doing valid. But I do think that I should go back to what I was saying earlier, that no one is talking about the NHL players linking arms.
No, I do think that was a conversation.
Like they were when Kaepernick knelt. And I know you're just going to say because it was original. I'm not comparing it directly, but I'm saying I just take issue with trying to avoid making the people who don't get it, who think that it's unpatriotic or whatever, making an effort to not make them uncomfortable, I think defeats the entire purpose of them protesting.
I get it. For me, we know what kneeling means. Now, when someone kneels during the national anthem, we know why.
Yeah, but there are still a lot of people who get pissed off about it.
No, I'm not debating that.
Yeah.
I'm saying interlocking arms doesn't necessarily speak to support of reform. It doesn't necessarily speak to I'm behind the Black Lives Matter movement.
Sure, right. It's not like that universal symbol now of kneeling.
You can take that, and maybe they did. I don't know. I don't know what they meant by interlocking arms. I'm not going to speculate on someone's psychology here. That is not my area of expertise. I don't have an area of expertise.
But you shouldn't need it. That's what I'm saying. If an effective protest or stance at what Kaepernick did, it drew attention. It was obvious. You knew what he was doing, and it became a symbol. This is like, if you have to overanalyze it, be like, oh, the players were locking arms, and oh, look, they were alternating team members, and what does that mean? And this is like, I feel like if you have to overanalyze
the social
it,
climate, I think.
Yes, now you're right. Yes, I think that it's at the forefront enough that most people are recognizing anything like that in that arena is about social reform.
I will
justice.
not deny that this is the NHL's way. And maybe it wasn't even the NHL. Maybe it was just these two teams. Yeah. I don't know. I'm just saying, given the fact that we're in such a social climate right now that this is at the forefront of issues, there is, it at least whispers it.
Yes.
Right? And to that, again, he's right. NHL is a predominantly white sport in viewership and in players. So maybe they don't understand the aspect of kneeling. Maybe they haven't had enough conversations with people when it comes to kneeling. I don't know. This is me giving the benefit of the doubt, and I understand that. But to say it's better than nothing kind of makes me feel unfulfilled.
Yeah. That's what I would say too. I think it leaves a lot to be desired. I'm
but
not
then
taking
again,
away
how
from...
are you going to kneel on ice? Just saying. No, practically, I mean, it might be a little difficult.
I think professional hockey players can.
They could.
Can do
I don't know. I don't know. Like, look it up. I'm sure.
They definitely do it.
When they stand, I know the goalie is in his gear. You can't kneel with those pads on.
What are you talking about? The goalie has to move around and block shots all the time.
I'm talking about...
Yeah, kneeling one knee down.
Does he?
Of course.
I don't fucking know. I don't watch hockey, man.
I don't either, but I'm pretty sure a goalie has to be nimble enough to
Maybe
the
it
shot.
is very easy. I don't know. I don't know how to skate. My point is if this is the NHL's way of doing it, that is not up to me to
I
decide
understand.
whether or not it's good enough. That is up
yes.
to the members of the Black community and people of color to, I don't want to say dictate, but they have more
Respond
of a valid response to that than I do.
Right.
I don't know. So for me to analyze this and say, yeah, good enough,
Right.
is not, that's not for me to decide. And for me to say, I feel unfulfilled. Again, that's...
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want to take away from it. I think that teams are being pretty creative. There's all different ways that everyone is handling this and drawing attention to it. And I just think that it's a very fine line between trying to avoid making people uncomfortable and actually being effective and standing behind the message that you're trying to send. If you feel that strongly in your conviction about what it is that you're trying to say by doing a protest, then don't worry about making people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That's not the point.
Yeah. And to this commenter's credit, I do think his intentions are good when it comes to
Of course.
his response to this. I don't know enough about the culture of hockey to understand if there are any nuances behind it. Again, I understand I'm giving a lot of benefit to the doubt, but I don't know. It's not up to me. It's not up to me to say whether or not that's good enough.
Well, we can try to watch a little bit more and keep learning about it. But this was our initial reaction just to hearing in general how some
to
of the
me, it's more
teams are approaching.
impactful to Neil, obviously. And, you know, if the MLB, again, which is a predominantly white person sport, viewership wise in America, outside of that, it's a very Latino and Latin American sport, actually. And that's great. I'm glad it's becoming more global. I didn't get a lot of pushback or read a lot of pushback when it came to the MLB. That's the case. I imagine the NHL probably wouldn't have either. Maybe.
You mean specifically for kneeling?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know, but I do know the NBA kind of got some pushback. The NFL obviously is still getting pushback, but again, to their credit, Roger Goodell has come out and said, we were wrong about Cap. He should have a job.
It's a little too late for me.
Yeah, I don't know if his strictly ability, if he could do it. I'd like to think he can, seeing as the quarterbacks are very much taken care of now. When you touch them, there's the flag. But I'll take personally, again, this isn't my fight. I'll take I was wrong. That's a huge step when it comes to the NFL and Roger Goodell.
It's a step.
So, that being said, I don't know if you wanted to touch on any more when it comes to sports and social injustice.
I think I want to keep watching as the seasons progress in whatever capacity they can.
Well, we're going to watch the Raptors tonight.
Yeah.
Kyle Lowry said, and Nick Nurse, who's the coach of the Toronto Raptors.
I love Kyle Lowry.
And Nick Nurse is a huge ally. We should mention that Toronto Raptors came up in a bus with, you mentioned it, Black Lives Matter, and that was the talk in the bubble. There were players not on the Raptors saying, did you see the Raptors bus? So much so, there was a fucking Karen on Twitter that thought that was the Black Lives Matter bus, their official bus.
Like of the movement?
Of the movement. And they were saying,
full of
they're
protesters?
spending millions of dollars on buses. And she fucking tagged the Raptors in it, and I responded. I was like, her name was Marianne. I don't mind putting that out in the air. I said, Marianne, what do you think of Nick Nurse's use of the box of one in the playoffs? Personally, I think it was an innovative yet really risky move that elevated his coaching psychology. But I really want to hear your opinion on this because you seem so well informed.
Right.
And the Raptors community roasted her.
I bet.
I love the Raptors. I love that community. So, anyways.
Yeah, this was a loaded episode. I think we could probably follow up on it at another time and dive a little deeper. And I don't want to be disrespectful. I know that we have friends and family who don't have the same feelings that we do about this issue. And
I don't care.
I don't know. Me either. I mean, I stand where I stand. My feelings are pretty strong if that hasn't been obvious yet. But that doesn't mean we're not open to conversation and hearing. We just want to continue the discussion, and we can all keep learning.
For sure. So do you want to do the Mandela effect next week?
Yeah, I think that'd be fun.
I think
we need a
it'll be
little
fun.
bit of a more lighthearted episode.
So when we preview the episode, please leave your favorite Mandela effects on there. I know we touched on a few of them last week, but post them and we'll talk about them. There are a lot. So having said that, thank you for listening. If you've gotten this far, we appreciate having these sort of social conversations. I know they're uncomfortable. This was not really for us. This conversation wasn't.
Well, it can be. Just because we aren't pretending like we've been in this conversation for all this time.
You and I, it's not uncomfortable.
Yes, but I mean, for me, I just feel like I am late to the party on this. Sure. I should have been doing more of this earlier, and I feel like a lot of people feel that way.
Well, I've been talking about this on the other podcast for quite a while, so it's
kind
of second
sports,
nature to me.
Yeah.
But anyways, if you liked what you have heard, sorry, tongue-tied, please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We really appreciate it. If your podcast catcher does not have a rating system, we encourage you to hop on the Facebook page. You can leave a review, a 5-star review there. That'd be very, very helpful and beneficial to us. It keeps us sort of motivated and helps us, understand what we need to work on or if we need to keep on keeping on. So we appreciate that. So yeah, you can find us Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. Spotify is the new awesome podcast catcher. So fuck it, we're on there. Stitcher, Pandora. Remember Pandora? We're there. TuneIn. We're on TuneIn Radio. Hey, cool. YouTube. And of course, you can find us at whileshe'snapping.com. If you want to hit up the socials, you can.
We're on Facebook, facebook.com/whileshe'snapping. Instagram is at whileshe'snapping, and on Twitter at she'snappingpod. Or if you would like to remain anonymous and send us an email, whileshe'snapping@gmail.com.
Yeah, so hit us up. And again, thank you for participating in these conversations. We appreciate it. And until next week, peace.
Yeah, bye.